Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the New Mainstream podcast,
where we explore the impact of multicultural consumers on marketing and media.
I'm your host, Mario Carrasco, and co-founder of Think Now. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the New Mainstream podcast. Excited to have a guest today, Tony Gonzalez, co-founder, CEO of Mundial Media. Tony, we've known each other for a while. Consider you a friend and a colleague, so happy to have you on and talk a little bit about your journey and Mundial.
Thanks, Mario. Happy to be here. I've listened to the show for more than a year plus now. A lot of your guests are inspirations and friends of mine, so happy to join you today.
Yeah, no, it has been quite a journey in terms of interviewing people like yourself, and I know we were talking about Jesus from Cabra Sports, and I've actually known him, and I was actually a fan of his brand before I realized that it was him behind it. I was a consumer on the social side, but excited to jump in. I mean, I know you and I have had conversations. I know a little bit about your background. Obviously, I know a lot about Mundial Media and what you're doing there. But before we jump into your company, um, let's talk a little bit about your career leading up to that. How did you get into this space and go as far back as you want?
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. It's always, I think it's always important to share one's career journey or origin story. I think first off, it's really great to talk to another Mexican American from California that is also in marketing automation, media research. There's few of us, but if you start looking more and more, there's a lot of more folks that are rising up, and that makes me extremely proud. With respect to my journey, I've been in digital media marketing automation for ad tech, if you will, for close to 15 years now. I started off on Wall Street working at an investment bank, more focused on healthcare and healthcare IT, and really fell in love with technology, with IT in college. But out of college, this is now close to 20 years ago, we were facing a rather steep recession and the dot-com bust. So I focused on getting a job in financial services, investment banking, and enjoyed that. But at the same time, I always wanted to work in the internet. I grew up in Northern California and had my sights on building an internet company at one point. Had that opportunity in 2005, working at I would say one of the bigger and more interesting internet companies in Los Angeles back at that time, a company called PriceGrabber.com. It was a comparison shopping site focused on providing users with the best deals, and it was a dual-sided marketplace. Company founded by two Los Angeles entrepreneurs, Tamim Murad and Cameron Porzanjani, and they were tremendous operators, leaders. We had a large team. I was employee number 80 and was brought on to help them with corporate development M&A topics, something that I was familiar with given being an investment banking analyst on Wall Street, and understood the process, the sequencing of putting together a prospective M&A process to find liquidity for the shareholders, for the employees, and other types of vested parties. So that was my journey into digital media marketing automation. Took a lot from that opportunity, that career step, and still look to that as a guiding light. Really learned a lot, and the two founders were tremendously generous with their time and their energy, and they always had an idea that there had to be harmony in the workplace, and I really enjoyed that, and I think other people did too. There was a fair level amount of transparency, but there was a lot of harmony, and really have taken that to having harmony here at Mundial Media. After Price Grabber, we ended up selling the company to Experian Interactive. Experian, as you know, is the credit scoring company, and it was a great exit for the founding team and the management and the employees. It's now been over, it'll almost be 20 years. So I'm privy to talk openly about the transaction, and it was close to $500 million in purchase price. So a very successful outcome for all involved, and also learned that how Tamim and Cameron were generous and egalitarian. Everyone felt as if they won at price grabber, and really learned a lot from those two in their experience, and took that idea to the first company I founded. So after Price Grabber, I went to a company called Demand Media, which was also a large Southern California internet company focused on having owned and operated properties and also being a registrar. So not unlike GoDaddy, they owned an asset called Enom, and I was tasked then again to work on corporate development, M&A topics, and learned a lot. And that was a very exciting opportunity in that there were so many young people there. So people that were a few years out of college, but were really gunning to build a career in digital media, and took a lot of that and learned from many people there. One person in particular, Larry Fitzgibbon, who's the founder and CEO of a company called Tastemade, was someone that was very influential that I learned a lot from, as well as
Is
Michael
Tastemade
Blunt.
the is that like the cooking and recipe? Okay. Oh,
That's
cool.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Tastemade is the call it the food content site, and it's something that I still peruse. My wife peruses for recipes,
Yeah.
and very influential company. And I think Larry learned the value of content at Demand Media. Another person there that I got to work with personally was Michael Blend, the CEO and founder of System One, large aggregated internet company that does marketing services as well. And he really understood scaling it and bringing uh, good folks in, and have a lot of really good friends at System One, Tastemade. So Demand Media was really a great ecosystem to be a part of and to learn from in terms of how to build scalable systems. And initially off the bat, Demand Media raised something like $350 million of equity and another 200 plus of debt, and eventually went public in a large IPO in 2011, 2010, if my memory serves correctly. So I was always involved in M&A topics, corporate development topics, business development topics. And at that point, I had learned a lot, and I wanted to try something on my own. So the first thing that I tried was building a demand-sided platform focused on general market in-app installs for games publishers like Candy Crush. So their owner, King, were partners to us, and we built a nice business around finding consumers that were interested in the gaming titles, and those folks would then go on to download the game. And it was a tremendous business. Myself and the team there were able to scale that company, and eventually sold it to a publicly traded uh, internet company called Blanks, or Rhythm One, as it's now called. This was now in 2014. And
So I want to ask you something there though. So are you taking breaks in between this, or are you just going?
one of the nicest conversations I've had in the last year was with you at a restaurant in New York City. We had a nice meal, and then we went on a long
Right.
walk. And we talked about the things that we needed to serve our purpose and ourselves. And a lot of that was actually um, taking breaks, taking respite. So I have done actually a lot of that. I have
Yeah.
at every major juncture of a project, and I know you all and the team at Think Now, you and Roy have built a tremendous business, something that I always look to as an inspiration. And you guys have been going straight for over a decade. I think it's year 12 or 13 now. So
Yeah.
I've always been able to, I've been lucky enough to have taken breaks. So between the Demand Media and the start of Life Mobile, the DSP, I took about a 6 month break. In between selling Life Mobile and joining my next opportunity, it took about a year and off. I was able to sell the asset. I was one of the principals in that deal, and very fortunate to take some time off and travel the world and do things that were not pertaining to looking at flat file CSVs, Excels, financial
Yeah.
models, working with my co-founder on product or any of those types of topics. So very lucky to take breaks.
No, that's good. Yeah, I just want to give some context because it's like, I mean, still, even with breaks, that's impressive for you to have that desire, right? To keep going.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's one of those things where you don't, and I'm sure we'll touch on this, but being generation, V15 or V2, you still have that that fight in you, if you will. Other people might term it chip on your shoulder. You still have that otherness aspect to you, whether you go to a business school like USC, or you go to any type of uh, demanding competitive type place. You always have that otherness aspect to you, and I've been confronted with that pretty much all of my professional life. Even as a student in college and in high school, you always have that aspect of otherness. So I've always been one to want to do more, and now I'm happy that there's a lot more of us out there. I think we still need more, but I'm happy that there's more of us, really.
Yeah, no, that is a great point. It is cool to um, have a podcast where I can highlight, like you mentioned, there's not that many, but it's great to have enough that it's, we're, wow, 7 years strong now on the podcast, and throughout its tenure, I've been able to have more and more Latino founders and executives in Fortune 500 companies, and then founders like yourself that have had multiple successful exits, which is great. So that is a good point that you bring up. Um, so yeah, so you have so you have Demand Media. There's a company in between there, right? Or
There's
an
there's a
affiliated.
there's Yeah, there's a company there that is in between, and I was founding president of a company called My Code Media. Used to go by the moniker H Code, and a very successful company that was focused on multicultural marketing. And we were I was part of that company for 5+ years and had a very successful run. I think what we were doing there was a bit nuanced and new to the market for that time frame, and it really was the first time it exposed me to multicultural marketing. I was just listening to some of the other podcasts, and Jesus Chavez from Cabra spoke to the first time he came into multicultural marketing was when he was in at Anderson at UCLA, and it was he was in a rotational program at Univision. That was like the first time he came into multicultural marketing, and I think a lot of us would probably have that similar experience where you happen to be Mexican American or Latino your entire life, but you principally don't get to work in that world. It's a little bit different. Principally, it's always general market. That was my experience until I joined my code, and it was a tremendous experience. I mean, the folks there, a lot of them were first generation, second generation. We had some folks that were DACA, and principally the workforce populace was Chicano, Mexican American, Latino. So very proud that a lot of those folks were given that opportunity to thrive, and subsequently, as it was reported in the Wall Street Journal, the company had a successful exit, and I worked at the company for a number of years. So proud of that success, and took a lot of learnings, and also found ways of augmenting and bettering those things while we're here at Mundial Media.
That's great. Yeah, no, I did follow that story as well, and that's cool that you were part of. I mean, I think it's one of. I think I bucket in, my code, and there's several other like Me Too. Um, I would call them second generation Latino media companies, right? I think first generation, you have the Univisions, the Telemundo of the world. Um, the next generation, you have, I think, companies that digital primarily in nature, but also understanding that not all Latinos speak Spanish, that not all Latinos are immigrants, right? There's the 1.5 second generation, so that's cool. And so yeah, I mean, I guess that brings that brings us to main topic today. Your new company. Tell us how have you integrated all these experiences? I mean, you have Multicultural, you have DSP. Like, how did that all come together and shape your vision for Mundial?
Yeah, I think I took a little bit from every experience, the good and the bad, and as everyone I think would do in my shoes and in your shoes, I think you approach every opportunity, and again, the origin story of Mundial really comes from I had left the business. There was a large, significant capital raise that I led, and after about a year or so, I decided to focus on other topics. And it was not until someone I had worked with for close to 15 years, Dr. Ramon Sendejas, my partner at Mundial Media, he's CTO and co-founder, and he and I have been working together for close to 15 years. He was head of analytics and optimizations at Life Mobile, and was the head of data and technology at MyCode, and long history of working together. Got to meet his family about 20 years ago. His brother was my classmate at college, and fostered a strong relationship. And it was Ramon that had the idea of he had spent 7+ years in multicultural, and it was time to think about new projects. And in that, he started thinking through how can I apply the learnings of multicultural with the big data products that we were working with at not only Life Mobile, our first company, the DSP, but also his background is in particle physics as a PhD from UCLA, and he's worked at national laboratories across the country, at Lawrence, and he thought that marrying contextual big data with multicultural audiences was a great idea. Initially, I was a little bit dismissive because I had gone through the significant capital raise as it was outlined, and I thought it was time to do something new. To be transparent with you, but Ramon had the idea that we could build something, and he looked at companies actually here in Santa Monica, like Gum Gum, that are doing contextual, where we could build a big business, given that companies like Gum Gum were not focused on multicultural audiences. And so we forged the path. We added on other folks that we had worked with at the previous company, people like Adrian Reese, co-founder and head of operations, and Patricia Linares, who's also a co-founder and head of strategy. We came together to be the founding team, and subsequently recruited other folks to the platform. And the mission of Mundial Media was really to be a contextual advertising platform using machine learning to super serve these multicultural audiences. So Hispanic, Black, AAPI, and LGBTQ plus. Today, we're close to 2 years into the project. We're an NMSDC Hispanic-owned entity, very proud of that. But first and foremost, we're a technology company, and that's where the nuance and context is important. I think there's a lot of players in the marketplace that are serving multicultural audiences, but I think it's in my opinion, I think there could be more value added to entities, and I think we're one of them with respect to technology. So in terms of how we all came together, it was really the crux of it was being a technology company. So today, working with these audiences, working with our publisher partners, which are part of the equation, and also our clients, the agencies and the brands, typically Fortune 500, 1,000 companies. We do that through scale, reach, and technology, building out these cohorts where we can hyper target things like Latina mom for the upcoming Mother's Day weekend that we'll have here shortly. Same with Latino Father's Day, or African American Black Father's Day, or any other types of things like back to school. So hyper targeting using our platform, using the 500 million plus data points that we've amalgamated over the last 2 years to really hyper target and super serve these audiences.
So for we have a lot of people listening on the research and insight side. Um, Explain to us what's contextual versus traditional digital targeting.
Terrific. As we think through that, we think of contextual as using the content to really target those users, and putting messaging, brand messaging, call to actions surrounding that content so that the user is not but I would say the user has a better user journey, and the ads are part of the content experience. We like to think of it as that way, whereas with third-party cookies and third-party data sets, there's a lot of noise, and you might not be targeting the right type of person. Also, with the advent of regulatory frameworks around privacy and users wanting more anonymity, uh, we think that contextual targeting a user through the content and not so much through uh, say a cookie that has a lot of noise in it, then we think that's a better user experience. I've read a lot about your approach to it, and I think it's very similar in terms of zero party data versus first party contextual data. We work with a whole host of publisher partners that are representative of these audiences, and from there, we take a lot of publisher data signals on. We just inked a new deal with a soccer site called 433 Football, and they passed to us a lot of user data, a lot of cohort analyses, a lot of things that are important for our targeting, and we ingest that into our AWS buckets. And from there, the machine learning starts happening. From there, we can start targeting, but it's all predicated on content consumption and not so much third-party data sets that were amalgamated through different means.
So yeah, what one thing that I've been struggling with, and or not struggling with, trying to solve for with our audiences. Of course, it's different. We're not media. We're trying to be the data layer within DSPs, but there's these two really kind of macro trends happening in the US. One, increased awareness and sensitivity to data privacy for the user, right? Cookies sunsetting, etc. And then two, on the company side of things, an increased awareness of DE&I. Now we can go down a whole other path about how DE&I is under attack. We just did a study to highlight that that's not the case. That we were actually not scared, but we were worried that DE&I, with everything that's happening in the media in terms of these attacks, quote unquote, on DE&I, was going away and may affect our business. That's not happening. We talked to over 100 multicultural marketers, and they're actually doubling down. So DE&I is increasing. At the same time, data privacy concerns among consumers are increasing. How is Mundial navigating that? Where you're a platform targeting multicultural users that does have sensitive information, right? Like ethnicity. Is contextual a solve for that, or can you kind of go into that a little bit more for our listeners?
Yeah, that's a great viewpoint. From our perspective, we think contextual will solve a lot of the noise, and it is predicated on having confidence intervals and being able to have a certain degree, a certain percent of of the correct data, so that you can target a user if that person happens to be Hispanic, Black, LGBTQ plus, or AAPI. And we do this at scale through the use of our publisher data, which is one to us. And we take that data with great care, and we build these cohorts to have the right messaging, the right ad for these groups. As it relates to DEI, very near and dear to me, and I can't wait to read that report, because it's one of the things that has been very hyperbolic in the media as of late, especially with the happenings on the Supreme Court and affirmative action. What you read on the Wall Street Journal or New York Times, as you know, it appears that DNI budgets are shrinking, but I'm glad to hear that's not the case. We've only seen a nice upswing in our metrics and our KPIs as it relates to budget. So I can confirm that with you as well. And we think that getting really away from some of these third party data sets is what is needed to reach these folks. And also, going back a little bit to DEI, I think it's just in a business imperative, and I'm going to sound like a parrot because everyone that has been listening to marketing reports and has been reading them and really ingesting this data knows that 55% of Gen Z are folks of color. So it's a business imperative to be aligned with these multicultural groups, and we find a lot of that. And as content creators are building content, are evangelizing content, we want to make sure that we're aligning the right audience with that content and uplifting that. And we do a lot of work with interest groups, especially as it relates to Black-owned media companies. We try to be a proponent and a supporter of accelerators and providing office hours. We help Bonisi with office hours, everything from uh, helping with setting up an ad server to thinking through ad load, or pricing schemes, really. So I think it's all in one big DNI multicultural advertising ball of wax, if you will. But at the same time, I think the technology nuance, the context, the ability to not have a data layer that may or may not been scrubbed, who built the data layer, which inputs were put into it. Whereas if we're working with these authentic publisher partners, these authentic uh, content creators, then I think that provides a better, more relevant experience.
Yeah, that's great, and I want to jump, I guess, in a similar vein about the technology about AI. Um, so we're every business right now, in the digital space and not, is having to think about AI and how, one, it affects their business, and two, how they're going to integrate into their business. Right. Full transparency. When AI, specifically LLMs like ChatGPT, started to hit mainstream, I didn't want to have to deal with it, and I think now I was like, I don't want to. I don't want to work on this, and I can't, right? I can't say that as a founder. I have to see how we have to utilize it, and so we've been working on AI here internally, specifically on synthetic data, right? How do we create an AI tool that is genuine and to our mission and vision, which is helping brands tap into the voices of diverse consumers. And so we're creating a solution that takes all the data that we've been doing for over a decade and hopefully creates a synthetic data that's representative of diverse consumers, which is missing in the marketplace. And so I'm curious, what is Mundial's thesis when it comes to AI, and how it can help in this space, or what that I'm calling, multicultural, digital, diverse media.
Yeah, I think 2024, I think that the word of the year will be artificial intelligence. And it's one of the things that we too are thinking through as it relates to generative AI. I will say that
Mm.
my co-founder, Dr. Ramon Sendejas, will talk through about using machine learning 20 plus years ago when he was at Caltech. So today, Mundial, from a technology perspective, from a product perspective, we use machine learning and we use semantic analysis to find those content cohorts that make the most sense for an ad from, say, Pepsi Cola or from Toyota. So every day we're using machine learning to really synthesize a lot of data, crunch that data, be able to have an understanding of that organized data and being able to have an output. So we do that at scale, and that is part of the wider umbrella of artificial intelligence. As it relates to generative AI, we have, not unlike you, we have a marketing team that is thinking through how can we use this to not only evangelize our platform, but also create some efficiencies in our work stream. So we too are confronted with that. And I think my challenge, along with other CEOs' challenge, is to think through the best application and use of that, all at the same time finding efficiency. So we're in the midst of that. We use it a lot here. We have paid instances to it. And it's one of those things where we're thinking through every day. I will say, and it's almost a question back to you, that with respect to synthetic data, I think a firm, a platform like Think Now has an advantage because I think we have an advantage, and we're only we're less than 2 years into our journey, whereas you have become one of the leaders in your discipline. And you and your partner are multicultural. You are the audience, and we have a moniker here at Mundial Media that effectively states we are the audience. So one of the benefits of having a CTO that is Mexican American, like Ramon Sendejas, is that he is part of the culture, and he is also a physicist who has a PhD in particle physics. So he's able to marry the, um, the physics, the big data, the machine learning with his first generation background, with the ability to living in a household that has multiple generations, right? His parents, himself, his siblings. And it's one of those things where it's very unique to a lot of people outside of our community, but it's very part and parcel, I would say. So, how are you all thinking through having an audience member being the heads of the company, yourself and Roy, and also having large data sets that go back 10 plus years in putting together themes and putting together toolkits for other folks?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, I was just talking about this with Roy today at lunch, and um, I mean, I think one of the reasons that we've been able to be competitive and grow, because there are some competitors out there, is that we do come from the culture, um, and there's a sense of, of course, it's a business, and we have to grow, and we have a fiduciary duty as founders and employers of a primarily Latino owned and operated company. But I think more importantly, what differentiates us is that we believe the work that we do is important, right? We believe creating representative samples are important, both for the success of businesses, but I think more importantly, our work, the insights derived from our work, create more culturally nuanced and sensitive campaigns. And at the end of the day, everybody wants to see themselves and their culture reflected positively. And I think that's what we want to do. And that's informing our company, but also the AI thesis that we have, right? Because right now, there are solutions already in the marketplace for synthetic data that you can go and ask it questions. Um, but one, I mean, even if you look at the big players, OpenAI, disastrous. If you go and ask, you know, Dolly to create a picture of a lawyer, you know what that's going to look like. Google went the opposite way. I'm sure you saw the mess that they got into, right? They went, they went to the point where trying to hard code diversity into the Google Bard to the point where you asked it to give you a picture of the founding fathers and they didn't look like the founding fathers, right? So,
Yeah.
we, like you mentioned, like we have 10 years of data that 10 plus years of data that we're feeding into our own model that we hope will be representative of the diverse US population. And you can ask it a question, and with 80% confidence level, it will give you a response that is reflective of U.S. Hispanic, Asian, and African American. So we're excited about that. I don't know when it's going to launch, but I think we're doing similar things in our respective markets, which is great. Which I think leads into the next question, which um, the importance of diverse media. I think that's or diverse owned media. It's great to hear that you have these office hours for Black owned media. Um, Yeah, tell me more about that, because I know about MySpace and what that means in the research space. Like I know there's a movement in media now for diverse owned media. What does that mean? Why is it important? And how are you leveraging that at Mundial?
Yeah, it's not unlike what you said about representation. We talked about these generative AI models that are quite flawed because the inputs are being led by people that are not multicultural and or don't have the nuance, right? You can be an ally and not be multicultural, but it takes the nuance, the want to understand these certain groups, and I think these groups are going to become more and more important. By groups, I mean audiences, multicultural audiences. And one of the things we care about is having representation. So as we are building Mundial Media, it's important for us to be a good player in the ecosystem and not just take. So with that, it's not only the office hours we provide organizations like Bomisi and the Black owned media content creators that they serve, but also helping other groups like Hispanic, Mexican American, AAPI, LGBTQ plus content creators in terms of having the right uh, monetization stack, the right ad serving functionality. A lot of these things come with the manual, but they're very difficult to bring to life. So we take it upon ourselves to do these office hours and to reach out, also to create partnerships, and diverse owned media is paramount to the success of I think our industry. We need to have more voices. We need to highlight those voices. And one of the things that I think I need to mention to you is that there's this whole notion of made for advertising sites, and there is a whole host of I would say bad actors in the marketplace that are doing insidious, are doing nefarious things with content to try to create click farms. But I will say on the other side, a lot of these Hispanic owned media properties, Black owned media properties get caught in this MFA type trap. And if you think through who is the young person, the young lady, the young man building a new site focused on whatever content vertical you want to think about, whether it's sports, whether it's fashion, news and entertainment. Typically, these young folks don't have the wherewithal to have an instance to Getty Images, don't have the best ad serving capabilities, don't have the best budgets for website design. So a lot of the times they get caught up in these MFA type traps that some platforms are very draconian about. So
Mm.
we've enlisted ourselves, we've drafted ourselves at Mundial Media to try to be a ally to these young content creators and really focus on providing more equity. By equity, it is monetization. It is having fair equity splits so that we can be better actors in the the space. And also, it cannot be a duopoly, right? It's the year 2024. There's been a duopoly in if we want to focus on Hispanic media for the last 40 years. And I think with the advent of the folks like Me Too and more companies like Mundial Media and what you're doing, which I think of your platform as being adjacent. There's a lot of commonality between what I'm doing and what you're doing. But for the sake of call it media, that there's or media owned Hispanic owned media platforms. There's not that many, so I think we need to have a focus on that, and it really comes from putting the work in, as corny and trite as that might sound. I think it does take the need to roll up your sleeves and to put the work in to help uplift these content creators.
I love that. I mean, you're literally using your platform to uplift them, and that's great. Um, well, I believe it or not, we're almost here at time, hitting on 40 minutes. But before we logged off, I want to know, like, what's the future? Like, anything you could share with us on what's in the pipeline for Mundial, or just, I don't know, something exciting you want to share, what's going down.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited and proud of the work we've done so far here. It's the early innings. I'm going to use some sports analogies. It's the early innings of our company, of our journey, and I'm really thrilled to bring more offerings to our partners, both on the brand agency and publisher side, whether it's business intelligence tools to our publisher partners, or whether it's more offerings to our brand and agencies, whether it's more exclusive partnerships, more custom content opportunities, more more one-to-one type relationships that we can bring to market. And I will also say, harking back to my background, we're always looking for partnership opportunities. I think there's a lot of great entrepreneurs that are multicultural like you and I, or also allies, and love to do more with them in the marketplace. And we're also always looking to to wield some of our other tools like M&A. It's a little bit early for that, but I'm always excited to think through how we can make 2 + 2 = 5 and build together. So that's a little bit of a purview to the future, but very proud of the work we've done to date, and want to do more, especially with firms like yours and other folks that are part of the ecosystem.
For sure. Yeah, no, that's exciting. It was great to talk to you. People that want to connect with you personally or learn more about your company, you want to give us some URLs and the best way to contact you if they have any questions or want to follow up.
Yeah, absolutely. Our URL is www.mundialmedia.com. You can find me at Tony@mundialmedia.com, and also we try to have an active LinkedIn account. You can always message us there.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. Thanks for joining, and thank you everybody for listening.
Thank you, Mario. Appreciate your time.
Thanks to everyone listening in. To get more multicultural insights, check us out at thinknow.com and follow us on social media. You can also subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform.